Welcome to the Healthy Reasonings podcast with Dr. Andre. You are now listening to your number one source for clear, unfiltered conversations about your health and wellness. Join us every Tuesday for success stories, educational topics, and interviews with wellness experts from around the world. You can listen to this podcast on your computer, phone, or any other electronic device that streams podcasts, or download each episode and listen to it on the go. Let's get started with today's episode.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Healthy Reasonings podcast, your number one podcast for clear, unfiltered information about health and wellness topics. I want to quickly remind you that the information being disseminated on this podcast is not intended to be medical advice for your specific medical condition, but rather it is a general discussion around health and wellness topics. If you are indeed in need of advice for your specific medical concern, please find your physician or a physician that you trust and engage them to ask relevant questions. All right, we've gotten that out of the way. Today is episode number 5, and I am safely back in my home country of Jamaica. I ask you to continue to pray for us, as you may have heard that due to weather patterns recently, we've had quite a bit of damage to the southern coast of our island, and so your prayers and well wishes are always welcome. But I'm back in Jamaica, and I think we've had a pretty good momentum building. Over the past few episodes, we've tackled quite a few foundational topics. And so today is going to be important for me to jump out of the blocks with a really bizarre and very extraordinary, bold, outrageous statement. And the statement is simply this: I do not believe that we will ever discover a universal cure for cancer. I don't think we will. A universal cure for cancer is something that I don't think exists. And so I don't jump up and down when I see the broadcasts or the messages indicating that there's a breakthrough in cancer that will be providing the next cure. And if you've been sticking with me throughout the previous episodes, you might have a pretty good idea why I say this. But before we get into the reasons why I say this, let's take a quick word from our sponsors so that I'll be able to jump into this without any interruptions.
In a world that moves too fast, it's easy to lose touch with what truly matters, your well-being. At Teshuva Wellness, we believe in a return to balance, to healing, to your best self. Our holistic approaches nurture not just your body, but also your soul. Whether you're seeking peace, energy, or a deeper connection, we're here to guide you every step of the way. Our medical experts specialize in holistic treatments for chronic diseases, ranging from autoimmune illnesses to cancer. Our treatments are safe, non-toxic, and effective. Because at Teshuva Wellness, your journey to wellness is our greatest commitment. Visit our website today at teshuvawellnessjae.com. or call 1-876-787-8197. That's 1-876-787-8197. Teshuva Wellness. Return to health. Return to your best.
Beautiful. So we're back. And of course, today we're talking about cancer, which is something I've spent the past 18 years trying to understand, learning how to manage and treat. And I think I have a pretty good background from which to speak about this topic. So in order to address that really outlandish statement that I made earlier, we need to first talk about what cancer is and what it isn't. So let's talk about what cancer is. Now, I view cancer as simply a very extreme form of imbalance of the body's ability to regulate itself. Meaning, the body, as we discussed in previous episodes, is constantly regulating. It's regulating your heart rate, your breathing, your sweating, a signal to tell you when you need to empty your bladder, but in the background it's filling. When you eat your food, the body is constantly moving the foods throughout the intestines and getting ready for you to pass it out the other end. There's so many different things about your body's functions that are completely out of your control and are continuously being regulated. So that system that does the regulation is known as the autonomic nervous system, and it touches every single cell in your body. It's able to regulate the activity of every single cell in your body, which means that in order to figure out what happens during dis-ease of any kind, we first need to start with the fundamental understanding that dis-ease simply represents an inability of the autonomic nervous system to regulate your body out of a challenge that it has faced. So that means that if you step from a very cold environment into a very scorching day out in the sun, we expect that your sweat glands will immediately begin to produce something called sweat. You don't ever have to touch a button or consciously think about sweating because it's going to happen once your environment becomes hot. Now, of course, if we find that that doesn't happen, then it means that the body is having difficulty engaging and regulating your sweat, which means that you are, whether you're aware of it or not, you are dealing with some form of dis-ease. And so we as doctors speak about treatment of diseases of various kinds, and we give them lots of different labels, such as diabetes, hypertension, Lyme disease. We had a recent disease that we were all trying to overcome as a globe for the past 3 years. There's so many different things, glaucoma, you think of anything, pulmonary fibrosis, asthma, liver disease. All of these things represent diseases of the body. And the reason why the body is unable to overcome them is because it doesn't have what it needs to regulate its way out of that challenge. And so my approach to disease, such as cancer, is that it represents simply an extreme form of the body holding itself in the best possible balance it can because it is unable to achieve the balance that it really wants. So, if that is the case, then what that means is that there are several different things that could be causing the body to be in this state. And that means that from person to person, it's unlikely for cancer, for example, to have one single cause in every single person. For diseases that are based on infections primarily, it's pretty easy to say, okay, the cause for this disease is this virus or this bacterium or this parasite. So, for example, the liver damage caused by hepatitis B, the hepatitis B virus leads to a disease condition known as hepatitis B or viral hepatitis caused by hepatitis B. And so that's easy to figure out. However, my general belief and the belief of several researchers and physicians over the years is that cancer, unlike other quote unquote straightforward diseases, has multiple reasons why it forms. And therefore, cancer is not simply a matter of cancer cells being created by the body. And we all know that cancer cells are what we find in cancer. And the general consensus is that we don't know why they form. The general consensus has also been over the years that the cancer is a genetic disease. And I have some thoughts on that. But the truth is that much of what we have struggled to do in terms of cancer treatment is because we have not given a panoramic and wide and broad view of what this disease really is. So let's assume that cancer, like other diseases, represents the body's inability to regulate itself. What that means then is that the cancer cells that are seen under the microscope when a tissue sample is taken are cells that the body that are representative of the body's best effort to get itself back to balance. These cells, although they do not behave normally, are not necessarily the cause of cancer. They're certainly not the solution to cancer, because cancer, in its truest sense, is an environment within the body that the body has created to be able to function as best as it can under the circumstances that it's facing. So, what am I saying then? First of all, the cause of cancer is going to vary from person to person, and the cause represents anything that can cause the body, the autonomic nervous system, to not be able to regulate itself well. So this includes infections, this includes um, exposure to chemical toxins, exposure to radiation, all the things we've heard about. It also includes emotional stress, because emotional stress interferes with the body's ability to regulate itself, interferes with the autonomic nervous system, because the autonomic nervous system has a segment known as the limbic system through which we develop our emotions, and the two are closely interconnected. And so genetics does play a role in some ways, because, for example, based on your genetics, we can determine your ability to remove certain chemicals from your body when exposed to them. And so if genetically you're unable to clear a specific chemical or toxin at a rate that is safe, then you'll have a likelihood of that chemical or toxin remaining in the body for extended periods of time, which can ultimately contribute to your development of cancer. However, as you may already be aware, if you're an avid listener to this show, the genetic risk that you have for cancer is the research is now clearly showing that it is far surpassed by what is known as epigenetic markers, meaning, yes, we're born with a specific operating system or genetic code, but it is our exposure to life and our various experiences and environmental exposures, emotional experiences, infectious exposures, all of these things are what play a role in ultimately the development of cancer. So that means, therefore, that the solution or the reason why somebody developed cancer might be different from the reason why their sibling or their friend or next door neighbor developed it. Even within the same cancer or same type of cancer, though there may be common causes identified for that specific cancer, it's quite possible that the cause in the person in front of you is unique to that specific person. And I'm going to give some patient story examples soon so you can understand a little bit better about what I'm saying. So here is where the challenge begins now. If it is that cancer is caused by different reasons, and these reasons interfere with the body's ability to regulate itself, then it simply means, therefore, that the treatment of cancer, or what is widely marketed as the cure for cancer, has to be able to do more than just destroy the cancer cells. Why? Because cancer cells were created by the body in an attempt to hold itself in the best possible balance that it can until it's able to overcome the challenge that it was not able to overcome. So that means that just simply destroying the cancer cells that have developed is not enough to help this person heal from cancer. And this is a fundamental difference between the way I used to practice a decade ago and the way I practice now. Because I had become a pretty good expert at administering the treatments that were intended to kill cancer cells, such as chemotherapy, radiation, immunotherapy, and so on. However, what I found was that in many cases, the patients became so debilitated after treatment that they ultimately deteriorated and in many cases died. And my personal belief is that chemotherapy, radiation, and other cytotoxic treatments are not necessarily bad things. However, when they are used in isolation as the only tool for helping a person heal from cancer, then it is what I call a very short sighted approach. And I've been guilty of it in the past. Luckily, I've learned on my journey that there are other ways to help the patient. So, there are three things that we really need to do to help a cancer patient to heal. One is that we must find a way. I agree, we must find a way to destroy the cancer cells. And that may be from our own external influence, or it may be helping the body to identify the cancer cells and destroy them. But the next step has to be for the areas in the body that were damaged during that initial onslaught or effort that we made, we have to provide the patient with adequate amounts of fuel, nutrients, enzymes, and so on to repair and restore the damaged areas. And finally, even if we do those two things without doing this third thing, we're still going to end up in trouble. And the third thing is we must have a way to adequately detoxify the body after doing all this work. What does that mean? It means that the liver, kidneys, and other organs are constantly throughout the day helping our body to eliminate waste. And this waste may be simply the air, pollutants from the air that we breathe, or the water that we drink, or the food that we eat. And it can range even beyond that to the very chemicals that we put into our body through various means. As a result, most of the cancer patients I meet already have detoxifying organs that are damaged or stressed beyond what they can bear. So this will include the liver and the kidneys, and my focus generally is on the liver because it has a greater potential for helping the body to detox. And so the approach to treating cancer, therefore, for me, has to involve one, something that's going to help the body or externally assist with destroying the cancer cells that have developed. Two, there has to be simultaneously a way of providing the body with the tools, fuel, nutrients, enzymes, minerals, etc., that it will need to repair the areas that are already damaged, as well as the areas that we damage with our treatment. And three, we must have a way of helping the body to keep its detoxification pathways open so that the everyday waste that the patient is generating can be cleared. The waste from the tools that we're using, whether chemotherapy, radiation, or even naturopathic or herbal treatments, all of those need to be cleared as well. And the breakdown products from the cancer cells, when we have effectively destroyed them, also need to be cleared. So all of these things need to be cleared carefully through the liver. And generally, what I've found is if we can support a patient with cancer in the area of keeping their liver healthy, generally it gives us quite a bit of latitude to be able to help that patient heal. There's one bonus step towards helping a cancer patient heal, and I hinted at it earlier, and it is something that I think is non-negotiable. And that bonus step, we're going to tell you a little bit about it right after this information, as we usually have. All right. So we spoke a little bit about the three things that we need to treat cancer effectively to help a patient to heal. And that fourth thing, I hinted at it earlier, and it is emotional counseling and support. Now, that may take the form initially of ensuring that the patient has some sort of a faith based reason for wanting to heal. And it may be faith in God, it may be faith in whatever, it may be something that they want to do to live for their children or grandchildren. It may be a goal that they want to achieve, but they have to have something that they want to achieve that would keep them focused on why they need to heal. The other thing is the need to identify trauma or negative emotional experiences from the past and help to get a trained professional to help these people to process these in a healthy way and to remove them from the body. I personally believe after 18, almost 19 years of working with cancer patients, I personally believe at this time that emotions are actually negative emotions actually behave just like toxins, chemical toxins do in the body. And as a result, they also need to be detoxified. In fact, I believe that the support that is needed for the organs of the body that deal with waste needs to be increased even more when the person is doing emotional counseling and healing, because I believe that these toxins literally need to be cleared by those same organs. I know it's controversial, but I could tell you story after story, which I probably will. And so, if we can combine the right treatment to help to eliminate the cancer cells, and we can talk about what those treatments look like. We can combine with that the repair that is required, and we combine with that support for the detoxification and the detox organs, and finally, emotional counseling. Then we can have a pretty good foundation and platform from which a cancer patient can heal. And I know it sounds unusual, but that's a framework that I have been using maybe for the past 5 or 6 years. And it's a reason why I've been having much better outcomes with my patients. And I'll tell you the story about one just now. I'm going to have her on the podcast shortly. And if you visit teshuvawellnessja.com, you should be able to see her testimonial on the website as well. This is a young lady who I met a little before the global pandemic that we had. And her story was that she had been diagnosed with colon cancer several years prior. She had undergone surgery successfully, but the cancer had returned. And so she had agreed to do chemotherapy and had done quite a bit of chemotherapy for several months. What had happened to her was by the time I met her, her body was so damaged from the chemotherapy that she was not able to do anymore, in her opinion. She was experiencing all the side effects. She was feeling really weak and exhausted all the time. And she said, Doc, I really just can't do any more of this chemotherapy. And this was a young lady in her late 50s at the time. And as I chatted with her at the time via Zoom, I had a very strong sense that there was a strong emotional contributor to her story. She didn't say anything to allude to that, but it was just something that I sensed. And so I made a deal with her. I said, listen, we have a very good program, a natural complementary program to help you to heal. But I believe that your greatest healing is going to take place when you start to tackle your emotional trauma. Now, I don't know what it is, but I'm sure you can relate to the fact that there's a lot there. And she smiled nicely and said, yes, Doc, you're correct. And so I said, here's the deal. If you will agree to do emotional counseling, I will agree to start you on physical treatments that will help. And at that time, of course, the cancer had returned. It had spread to her lungs. It had previously involved her liver. And of course, the primary cancer was in the colon. So the outlook wasn't that great. And I think that may have been why she decided, hey, I have nothing to lose. She started on emotional support counseling, and she also agreed to come to the office twice a week to do treatments with us. That was at the beginning of 2020 when she started, January of 2020. And we are now I think we're in July of 2024. So this is 4 years later. And to my surprise and hers, within a few months of starting her program and doing her emotional work, all of her laboratory markers returned to normal. She regained her physical strength and energy. Her hair and skin began to glow again, and her imaging throughout the body showed significant reduction in the amount of cancer present, to the point where 4 years later, most people who come to the office would not even have a clue when they see her that she was ever unwell. And so she now is able to help me to mentor some of the patients who are just starting their journey. And she's almost like a celebrity at the office because everybody wants to be able to meet her. So this is just one of many stories of experiences that I've had, and it informs the reason why I believe that the treatment for cancer, one, it cannot be universal. I do not think that we will find a universal cure for cancer because it's just the causes for cancer are so unique to the patient. They're broadly falling into the same general groups, but we need to be able to think individually and to apply personalized approaches to each patient if we're going to be able to achieve that. And interestingly enough, in my last episode that we spoke about diet, what should I eat, we alluded to the fact, for example, that everybody needs to be metabolically typed if we're going to determine what they need in terms of diet. And we know diet is so critical to the second part of cancer healing, which is the repair and restoration of the damaged tissues. So I think we've made a bold statement today about what cancer is and why I don't think we'll ever have a universal cure. But at the same time, we have spoken about the 3 steps necessary to heal from cancer. And I firmly believe that once we can adequately provide these 3.5 or 4 steps to every cancer patient, we will find a larger percentage of our patients healing. I've been experiencing it already at my office, and I think if we're able to expand it further, we'll be able to get the benefits that these patients have gotten. So therefore, again, I want to emphasize as it relates to diet, that there cannot be one diet that cures everybody from cancer. Similarly, there cannot be one herb or magic treatment, as effective as it may be in destroying cancer cells. That's only a part of the puzzle. So I want to caution you as listeners not to fall for the hype of thinking that one magic supplement or one magic diet or one magic treatment is going to be the solution to heal all cancer patients. If you have any questions about what we've spoken about today, I'd really love to hear them. You can reach out to me on social media, as you know, at wellnessdoc.jamaica, WELLNESSDOC Jamaica, JAMAICA, on social media, or you can leave a comment below in the podcast app that you're using, preferably Spotify, because I'm more likely to see it. You can send a voice memo on Spotify as well. And there's going to be a little poll that I'd encourage you to do. Please remember to subscribe to this podcast on your player or app that you're using, to download it, and to share with a friend. We are coming up to the point where I'm going to have guests on the podcast. I've already identified them and we've had them booked in. And so we're going to expand a lot on some of these concepts that we've spoken about by giving you real life people to talk to. We're going to have a mix of patients who have success stories, as well as wellness experts from around the world who I've met on my journey and who have a beautiful angle and perspective on the treatment of cancer as well as several other diseases. So I look forward to speaking with you again for episode 6, which will be coming up soon. Have a great one.